By Billy Cunningham, the great American. Of course, what's happening now in foreign affairs is dominating the front pages of the paper. And a week or two ago, there was a CCP biolab discovered in Las Vegas, which wasn't the first one or the second one or the third one. There are many. And these biolabs have agencies of Lyme disease and chronic illnesses and also AIDS and all kinds of terrible, terrible diseases. And this isn't the first one being discovered. It's one of many. I can't imagine in the history of the world when one nation is operating biolabs in another nation's territory without having some terrible intent. Joining you and I now is Casey Fleming, CEO of Black Ops Partner, also author of the book, which talks about the rise as Red Tsunami, exposes the objectives of the communist Chinese with unrestricted warfare inside the U.S. And once again, Casey Fleming, welcome to the Bill Cunningham Show. First of all, tell the American people what was discovered in Las Vegas.
A lot of bad stuff. HIV, extreme strains of HIV, tuberculosis, malaria. I mean, the worst of the worst strains, hantavirus, and a list of others. They took out over 1,000 vials to be tested. 2 people that were actually housekeepers were actually taken to the hospital because they could not get out of bed. So it's and not only that, they rented the house out as an Airbnb as well. So figure that one out. But it's the worst of the worst, and exactly that they're hosting bioweapons labs on sovereign U.S. soil. That should make every American's blood curdle.
The only one I've read, is this the only biolab the Chinese have in America, or are there many?
There are many, and it's not just biolabs. It's a list of all kinds of other things, but it's soup of the day, so we're talking about biolabs. We can talk about marijuana weed grow farms, 3,000 just in the state of Oklahoma alone, that are drenched in CCP chemicals, fertilizer, herbicides, and so on. So, I mean, it's just soup of the day on where you want to talk and where you want to start. So this there was a previous lab in 2023 in the Bay Area. That was in a strip center, but this is actually in a residential neighborhood in Las Vegas. And there are other biolabs that we are aware of, and the federal government are aware of as well. In other states in the U.S.
So, and we've done other topics on this over the years. The state of Maine, the state of Oklahoma. I think of Oklahoma as kind of like a red state. This happening in California wouldn't shock me at all. Because I understand in California they're having trouble with legal pot. So much illegal pot is flooding the market. It's crashing the idea of Californians through taxes making money. And so part of this deal is to make money off the drug use of others in America, including fentanyl, but which will kill you. But the kind of pot being grown by the Chinese in America is not your grandfather's pot. Is that correct?
It's the worst of the worst. Not only are there carcinogenic chemicals, there are additives that they use in these grow farms, and American growers are buying their chemicals directly from China as well. Nothing happens in China unless the Chinese Communist Party know about it, approve it. Nothing happens in China. If it happens without them knowing about it, you get detention or re-educated, or you get killed. So yes, these grow farms are very, very bad, and you'll see emergency rooms now are having so many people come in, and it's our young folks, not just fentanyl killing these guys and gals, young folks coming in with permanent psychosis in these emergency rooms, and it's all done from smoking weed. Now, the weed, just the basic weed, is not your grandfather's weed. It used to be 3% THC, and the minimum you can get now is 30% THC, and that almost doesn't exist anymore. It's all upwards of that to 90, 95% THC. And then again, remember the addictive nature of marijuana, and then all these horrible chemicals that people are smoking into their lungs, which goes immediately into their bloodstream and into their brain.
You talk about asymmetrical warfare. The Chinese, maybe because of Confucius and Su Li and many others, believe not in a frontal attack on a society if they can use asymmetrical warfare. Explain that to the American people, Casey Fleming. What is asymmetrical warfare the Chinese are now using against us?
I wrote an article back in 2017 to the West Point Modern War Institute on this, and Cyber Institute as well, on this specific subject. It goes by asymmetric warfare because it comes at all different sides, all different angles. It's also called, the Chinese Communist Party calls it unrestricted warfare, meaning no rules. But it goes under asymmetric warfare, goes under hybrid warfare, which also means achieving military objectives by non-military means. But the most important thing to understand, it's no rules. And your enemy hates you, and they want to kill you and your family and take over your country. And it's done with no rules. When they're killing 150,000 American young men and women, military-aged young men and women every year, they don't like you. And it's just, you've got these grow farms. They're 3,000. Think about if you had 3,000 nickels. That's the number of grow farms in just Oklahoma. Then there's about the same number in Maine, same number in that we know about in Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and California. And so they're feeding this tainted, horribly tainted, on the same level as weaponized biolabs. You've got weaponized marijuana and weaponized drug warfare. But there's all these different types of warfare. There's over 100 that the Chinese Communist Party uses it to weaken their enemy, and the plan is never to go to war. Back in 1999, two Chinese colonels wrote a book on unrestricted warfare. They basically realized, the Chinese Communist Party realized that at the time they could never go head-to-head with the United States to take them over. And they always play the long game. By the year 2049, and they're overachieving that, to the year 2035, they are fully planned on taking over the entire world and there's two sides to the coin. You either have liberty and freedom, or you have communism. And there's only two sides to that coin. So that's really what's going on behind this. And they still pay attention to Sun Tzu, who was a brilliant military general back 2,500 years ago. And he says, win the war without fighting. Know your enemy better than yourself. And he's got, there are a lot of Sun Tzu quotes that are pretty darn accurate even today. But the CCP still follows Sun Tzu. And by the way, when you're in a war, you have to become intimate with your enemy and what they're thinking. And we don't understand it.
No.
People, those of us who grew up in the West, freedom, God, country, freedom, no problem. We don't think like a communist regime, that your mortal enemy is freedom. Your mortal enemy is liberty. And who stands for freedom and liberty? Those darn Americans. And the infiltration and subversion, you're seeing Las Vegas bioweapons labs. There's probably 30, the number that we have that we're working off of in the intelligence community, probably 30 in the United States. Those are not just for research. Those are for deployment. Another virus that I didn't mention, that's hantavirus. It's that mouse, mouse virus that pretty much kills you within a week, and it's extremely deadly. They've also had hantavirus in there, as well as all the COVIDs and the SARS and so on. And those are for deployment in the United States, inside of the borders. So the next one may not be charged to China, like the Hong Kong flu or the China COVID virus. Trump used to call it the China virus until he got his hands slapped. And so he calls it, then they decided to all arrive on the name of COVID. Everybody knows where it's from. So the next virus, they don't want it to come out of Wuhan. They want, even though they're still developing viruses in Wuhan. So it's all these different methods to weaken your enemy without fighting. So your enemy just capitulates and says, we just want somebody to come in and take care of us. We're hurting so badly now. And that's really the thrust of it. The key is unrestricted war means it does not involve the military.
Right.
And those of us in the West, we think, well, if we're in trouble, our military is going to save us. Not this time. This time, it's focused on every man, woman, and child. And that's the reason I wrote the book, because nobody was writing the book. There are great guys that wrote books in and around the subject, but nobody wrote the 360 view, and nobody wrote it to the most important people, those people who are under daily attack, and that's the American people. And on top of that, it's also the rest of the free world. It's Canadians, Aussies, Brits, and so on. But unrestricted war is the worst of all wars. It's the final war, and they just keep leveling all these different layers. Did you know there were over 40 CCP police stations on sovereign U.S. soil?
Sure, I was going to ask you about that. Now, New York City had one, but imagine police stations, 40 or more inside of America that we know about, along with the biolabs. We haven't talked about cyber, what they've done to our computers, water service, electricity. We haven't even plus 3,000 pot farms and fentanyl, asymmetric warfare, unrestricted warfare. Just talk about the police stations. Then I want to talk about cyber, how the Chinese what can destroy us. We won't be able to communicate or turn the lights on. Let's begin with police stations.
40 police stations on sovereign U.S. soil. There were 2 in New York. When the FBI found both of them, they shut them down, and 2 weeks later, they were open a block over. Each one was over like a block or 2 over and down a street. And just imagine if the FBI would have 40 police stations inside of China. Do you really think that would be allowed? And incidentally, even 5 years ago, we knew about two shiny new Ford Fusions driving around the Bay Area. Shiny black, gloss black Ford Fusions. And on the side of the doors, they had this 2-foot size MSS seal. What's the MSS? It's the Chinese Communist Party's Ministry of State Security. That is basically the same thing as the FBI and the CIA combined in China. And these 2 cars are driving around, following each other, all the streets through Silicon Valley and the Bay Area to stir up intimidation to Chinese Americans. And when the mother country calls upon you, you will do what we tell you to do, or we will torture your family back home. And so that was just boldly driving around. And I was actually with senior FBI agents at the time, and they didn't know what to make of it. And I said, this is what you make of it. So this is all persecution on U.S. soil, sovereign U.S. soil. That's the point of how far this has gone unchecked and unfettered. Now, this is also the same through Latin America, South America, Africa, throughout the rest of the world. It's called soft power. And it's weakening your enemy. I will also tell you, inside the brain of your enemy, they believe it's their destiny to rule the world for the next 2,300 years.
Sure.
Because they ruled the world for the last 2,300 years, sans the last century, which was the century of great humiliation. That was started in 1850 with the 2 opium wars that were leveled by the British Empire, and of course the U.S. Fed into that. That began the century of great humiliation, and it ended with the Americans having to come in and kick the Japanese out of China. So that was the century of great humiliation, and since then they said no more. And we all used to laugh because China was the great pirates. They'd pirate luxury items, they'd pirate movies, they'd pirate everything. Well, they perfected that piracy to the point where we gave them the technology or the intellectual property, and if it was missing in their portfolio, then they would just steal it through any number of things, either embedded employees, embedded college students, college interns, or honey traps where they'd blackmail beautiful American women, blackmail them, and have them take somebody home and get on, give them a date rape drug and get on their computer. I need to borrow your computer. I have to check my email. And then they put a USB drive, thumb drive, on the computer, and then now the malware's there, and now they've got access to the entire network back at this aircraft manufacturer. This happens all day, every day. We have video of. Go ahead.
But before I let you go, we have about a minute and a half remaining. Cybersecurity. Could they turn off our power grid, our water systems, turn off our lights? About a minute and a half remaining. That this is just a part of the biolabs, the marijuana grow farms, thousands of them, along with police stations and fentanyl. It's a Sun Tzu. Just give me a minute on cybersecurity with the Red Chinese.
Absolutely, they can shut off electric, our power, our water, our internet. They've had dry runs on all of them. They've purchased water companies up in New Hampshire so they can understand the whole mix there as well. Not only can they shut off the water, they can poison the water through cyber as well, as well as waste. But absolutely, plan on it, count on it. They absolutely have that ability to do so. And then I've had CEOs. I've been at conferences speaking, and they actually paid me to speak. And I had a group of CEOs, and CEO was belligerent. He says, "How in the heck that wasn't the word he used. How in the heck do these Chinese PLA, People's Liberation Army, how do they know all this technology?" I said, "Well, I can assure you, it's not that they sat next to our kids in the University of Dallas and San Jose State learning internet security." No,
they stole it. But Casey Fleming.
Go ahead. They sat right next to our kids.
They did that. Well, by any means necessary. It could be by stealing. It could be by a million college kids from China. It could be by birth citizenship rights. Once again, we'll do it once every couple months. Casey Fleming, author of The Red Tsunami, lay it out. Our leaders have got to respond to this in an appropriate fashion. I fear we will not, and we will grow up under the hammer and the sickle, and it's going to be the 4 stars of the Red Chinese Party. Looking at this stuff going on right now ought to be a wake-up call for everyone. Casey Fleming got to go, but thanks for coming on the Bill Cunningham Show. Let's do it every couple of months. We'll keep sounding the alarm, and I love your research. I love the fact you have the facts. And once again, Casey Fleming, thanks for coming on the Bill Cunningham Show. Red Tsunami is the book. Yes.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Let's continue. How about this?